Happy Wednesday, Unwoke Nation, and I'd like to welcome you to episode 8 of the UnWokeShow, where free speech is welcome, all subjects are on the table, and your boys bring weekly topics raw and uncut every Wednesday night for your enjoyment, baby. I'm your co-host, Rich, along with my brother from another mother, Big Tim. Timmy, how you doing?
Hey, what's up, Rich? Good evening, buddy.
Doing great, man. Doing great. Hey, listeners, we want to thank you guys for joining us. Also want to let you guys know we are so thankful right now. So we just learned to where we are now nationwide. Absolutely, guys. We are so excited about that. So we want to give all you guys in Unwoke Nation a very special thank you for tuning in. We love you guys so much and all. We definitely want to be able to get the word out. Hey, guys, do us a favor. If you love the show, you like hearing what we got to say, please, guys, please like, follow, comment, and definitely share our podcast with other like-minded unwokers out there that you might know, that you talk on a daily basis and everything like that. So, and once again, guys, always, we love hearing from you guys. So definitely send us our feedback or even any show topics you might have, because hey guys, we're always thinking about shows, but we'd love to be able to hear from you guys and maybe some things out there that, maybe just stuck in your craw and you want to be able to, for us to talk about. So definitely, put it out there for us. So guys, definitely, like us and definitely send us a message on our podcast email. That's at feedback@unwoketheshow.com. Once again, feedback@unwoketheshow.com. Definitely send us some of your topics you want us to hear. We'd love to be able to cover them, guys. So once again, thank you guys for joining the show here. And we got a good one now that's probably been on your mind and you've been hearing a lot into the news tonight. So episode 8 is actually about reparations. I'm sure a lot of you guys are probably hearing some of that in the news probably over the weekend and also, but Tim, our boy Poindexter, knows all the information. He's going to be bringing it right to you, to make sure you get all the facts and figures. So go ahead, take it away, Tim. What's on tonight?
Man. So tonight, reparations. Gavin Newsom, has stopped short Tuesday of fully endorsing his state's reparations plan. To our listeners there on the left coast, California, good afternoon, good evening.
Love you guys.
But yeah, so California is exploring reparations. Essentially money for apologizing for racism, incarceration, maybe unfair incarceration. I guess we could put it that way. Unfair discrimination, maybe in the housing loan process. When I first heard this, honestly, what came to my mind is I'm not surprised.
Yeah,
I know out there on the left coast, y'all do a little things a little different, little head scratching going on there. Just my initial thoughts on this. How's the state going to pay for it? Logically, where's the money going to come from, right? But I don't know, the notion of apologizing for racism through financial means, to me, almost it seems a slap in the face. Hey, yeah, we're sorry. Here's a check. Oh, by the way, here's a white glove to the face.
Yeah, I was listening to some of the video that was put out of where, and I was a little confused, Tim. I don't know if you got to see it as well, but there was it looked like it was some type of, I don't know if it was at the up in Sacramento when it was the state, maybe they got a state committee council together, and I guess apparently they had some people up there. For those of you guys who are out here on the East Coast or it's that might not have seen it, so apparently there must have been a huge maybe state congressional meeting, and they were showing in the video there was a lady and a man, and pretty much the bottom line was they were saying that they wanted the state of California to pay reparations. And actually, the message was more towards President Joe Biden, basically stating that we want you to pay our reparations or you're not going to get reelected. And so for those of us who might know a little bit about California, and I've always heard this as well. Now, they say California has an economy where there's probably bigger than 6 countries combined in the rest of the world. But what I never understood, and like I say, guys, you guys know me, so I'm going to be very straightforward in there. So I'm a black man or so. And I think it's important that I tried to understand this as much as possible. Tim hit it right on the head. Where does the money come from? So if we're looking at just the state of California itself, what would you say, Tim? They probably had over maybe 1 million people have probably left out of California because of how expensive it is. I mean, I've heard some people say in up there in like the central, maybe northern portion of California, they say, you know what, if you're making $100,000, like, you know, if you're doing $130,000, $140,000 worth in certain areas of the country, you're doing pretty well. But in California,
you're poor.
You are broke.
Well, don't forget Scott Baio's leaving California too over crime and homelessness.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I mean that's.
Yeah, I mean that's that's got to be something.
Just say so. Here's what they proposed. It's an $800 billion reparations proposal. That includes $1.2 million in payments for Black Californians. Huh? So this legislation approves the creation of a reparations task force that is going to provide independent findings and recommendations in a sort of milestone bipartisan format in order to advance justice and promote healing. According to this reparations task force, this is an important process, and they should continue to work as a nation to reconcile our original sin of slavery, and understand how that history has shaped our country. And this is Newsom saying this. When did slavery become a sin?
As far as I know, I mean, it's like, when I think about this, and also I know that I've heard other people talk about this. Like, for instance, where I know there's the documentary. I think it's like, I think it's America. Where have they gone or so? And I'm trying to think of the name of the guy who made it. Where maybe some of you guys who can probably write into us and definitely write into us on feedback at unwokeTheNation.com and also let us know. But there's a documentary out there, and the person who did the documentary, he actually talked about that slavery in general has been around in the world for centuries now. And now, don't get us wrong, we're not saying that there's justification or anything like that, but it's something that's just been around for slavery now. But what my problem has always been too is that we need to understand that, yes, that these things have happened to the Black community. We do understand that. We do understand that where it's made some light, but it is American history. You know? Well,
I mean, slavery has existed long before the Americas.
Before it even hit the American coast.
Yeah, before the Columbus discovered America. Right? It has long been established. Right.
And that's even
whites owning blacks, blacks owning blacks.
Oh yeah, you had tribal nations in all different areas of the continent of Africa, and also that were doing that, nations against nations and stuff like that. I mean, right. In fact, for some people that might not even know, there were actually tribes out there that were collaborating with white settlers at that time, because some of the original slave traders were actually from the Dutch and from the Portuguese. Mm-hmm. And so, you had a lot of them that say, like, hey, you know what? Pretty much they were almost saving their own necks. It's like, hey, if you go get your enemy tribal that's on the up north and like that, and you bring them to us, we pretty much spare them. But of course, we know that didn't last very long, but you get the point.
Yeah, that was just shit real fast.
Exactly, So, but they were, like I said, they were just willing to save their necks in any way, shape, or form. So Tim, you're absolutely right. I mean, slavery has been around for a very, very long time, for centuries on end. But when we're looking at this, you just got done saying that they're trying to come up with a 800 billion?
800. So let me go back. It is a $800 billion proposal that includes up to $1.2 million in payments for Black Californians.
Now, is that per family, per person? I mean, how do we come up with these numbers?
It's funny money accounting. Right?
Exactly.
So here is somewhat of a structural breakdown of the task force recommendation, right? It includes housing discrimination payment of $148,000, a mass incarceration payment of $115,000, and an annual yearly payment of $13,000 for healthcare disparities. Of California's entire congressional Democratic delegation, only Representative Barbara Lee has explicitly supported the task force recommendation. Newsom goes on to stress the importance of many of the committee's recommendations, but did not signal his support for cash payments to Californians.
So exactly what is he proposing, or if he doesn't want to do it through cash payments?
It doesn't go into detail about cash payments, but he's quoted as dealing with that legacy is about much more than cash payments, the governor added. Many of the recommendations put forward by the task force are critical action items we've already been hard at work at addressing, breaking down barriers to vote, bolstering resources to address hate, enacting sweeping law enforcement and justice reforms to build trust and safety, and strengthening economic mobility, all while investing billions to root out disparities and improve equity in housing, education, healthcare, and well beyond.
Question. When they're talking about trying to make sure that there was equity and fairness and stuff like that, does anybody recall the news story that came out back in the city of Oakland, where they were going to pass out money? I think it was during the pandemic, and they said they were going to give like $300 per Oakland resident, but they couldn't be white. Sounds kind of bass backwards to me.
You know who ought to be raising their hand?
Who?
The Indians.
You know? I mean, yeah. It's like, yeah, for those of you guys out there, if you're a listener who are Native American, you know what? You are a true American, all right? So I don't care if you're Cherokee or like that. So if anybody should be saying something about reparations, it's Native Americans.
Yeah, I'm just saying. How do you not... If you're Native American, Indian, whatever, how do you not see this? Yo, I want my part. Where's my money? Where's mine? I mean, yeah, you gave us these reservations, protected areas for
on your own land.
Yeah, on your own land.
Mm-hmm.
Right. We're calling it protective, even though technically it was your own land.
Trail of Tears.
Yeah. You all were here before we were here.
Mm-hmm.
I don't get it. How does one situation trump the other?
Yeah.
It doesn't. As far as I'm concerned, there's no reason that we should even be talking about this.
Yeah.
Not knowing what it's like growing up in the black community, obviously, I'm just looking at this on the surface and saying, this almost seems like a slap in the face.
Yeah, I mean, I don't understand the mentality that's been going on within the community of trying to figure out what it is, which is why I asked you earlier why they were trying to come up with the number of supposedly $800 billion, and they're trying to propose about giving $2 million, I guess, per California resident, or is it a family of 4, or does the number go up where if you have larger family? I mean, what is it?
They don't go into that specific detail or break down. But again, I don't get it.
Yeah.
Racism is unfortunate. It's terrible. All right.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, let's just get that.
Yes.
But it has existed and it will continue to exist.
Anybody heard of this the sex slave trade? That seems to be hitting the news a lot, and it should be. And also, but I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's going on in this world, and still having slavery in some way, shape, or form.
And why are we apologizing and handing out money for stuff, for the situation that we were never a part of? The money that is going to these people, they were never a part of it.
Right.
So it's an award by association at this point?
I guess so. That's what it's looking like. So I've had friends literally call me. So when we were having all the situations with all the looting, rioting, in fact, where I think it was about 3 weeks after the whole George Floyd thing, and I had a friend of mine who's white, nicest guy ever. Sister ends up calling me, and he says to me, he's like, well, Rich, I was just calling to find out, what was going on, how you're feeling and stuff like that. And, just kind of just feeling bad about all the stuff that's going on and everything. And I told him, I said, okay, I was like, I appreciate you, give me a call. Let me, want to see how I was feeling about it or so. That was really thoughtful of you. But I remember telling him, I was like, okay, but please understand when you're hearing about all this, this whole apology movement and all this other stuff of people who are white and now living in America right now. And I told him, I said, I don't need you to apologize for that. I don't. You had nothing to do with it. In fact, that was my exact words to him. I said, you had nothing to do with this.
So how do you separate the families who had land that were black, that had black slaves?
That's true.
How do you ensure that those individuals don't get rewarded?
Yeah.
I don't. It just says reparations.
Right.
It almost sounds like you have to apologize for being black. Here's money.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I mean, that in itself just seems like an insult.
See, and here's the thing too, Tim. It's like, to be honest, okay, let's just say hypothetical or so this goes through, okay? Obviously, it sounds like Newsom's going to kibosh it, but let's just say this goes through. What stops that from saying that the $800 billion is the end all be all?
Oh, it's not.
It's not going to be.
Do you remember all the stories of all the COVID fraud and all the money that was set aside for COVID support and fraud? Oh, by the way, somebody in Congress just got busted for accepting COVID support, even though...
Like what, 4 counts or something like that? Yeah.
And in case you don't know, we're talking about, what is it, George Santos.
So that's it, Santos, right?
Just charged by the Justice Department, right?
Yep, just earlier, a couple hours ago.
During the COVID pandemic, he was collecting COVID, support, even though he was employed at the time. I think his COVID benefits were almost like $2,500.
Really?
And he's just one example.
Right. Makes you wonder who else has done this and just hasn't gotten caught yet.
Yeah, but all the stories that we were seeing about how the COVID, that whole benefit and everything was just wrought with fraud and people taking advantage of it.
I mean, even you probably talk like a lot of the PPP and all the other stuff and all, like, they
all those false claims and everything. And you can't tell me that, to your point, let's just say this reparations goes through.
Yeah.
That it's not going to be wrought with fraud,
right,
and abuse. Let's just throw the money part of it out of the equation. As a black person, you're accepting apology that has money tied to it,
right?
Which is more important, the apology or the money?
That's a good question, man. That's a really good question. So if you do $2 million a person, I'm sorry. If you do $2 million and plus $1, I'm really, really sorry. I mean, you know what I'm saying?
If you're getting a $2 million check from the government as a reparation for slavery, you're gonna, more than likely your response is going to be, "Thanks, man."
Yeah, pretty much.
Right? Oh, I appreciate it. It's not going to stop.
It's not. Because what's going to happen is they're going to, something else will come up. It's like, okay, there should be a reparations for people who serve, for black soldiers who served in World War II. All right, who weren't allowed, and also, they'll use the example of, it's like, okay, let's see how the Tuskegee Airmen were treated.
Right.
Soldiers that were in France, and also they couldn't eat with white soldiers and different things like that. When does that come along?
Is it a slap in the face to Martin Luther King and everything that he tried to accomplish?
Good. I think it can be, because at no point did I ever hear Dr. King ever want to talk about there being reparations. It's like, he just wanted to make sure, as he always said, it's like, he wants somebody to judge them on the content of their character and instead of their color. And so
you got to see the irony in that statement, though.
yeah, exactly. So when you're looking at that, I was like, he wasn't sitting up there marching through Salem saying it's like, slavery, because remind you, slavery had already been over in 1863. Okay, so there was ample time to sit there and come up with something like that. To sit there and say like, oh, well, we should get reparations and da-da-da and all this other stuff. And of course, Dr. King being a legendary leader in civil rights, would you say, okay, he's got a right, be able to say that. But he didn't. All he wanted was the black community to be able to have the equal rights and to be treated like man. If any of you guys have ever seen some of those old black and white pictures and everything, the one gentleman where he's holding up this big sign in one of the marches and all, where he says, "I am a man." That's what he was talking. That man who's holding up that sign, that's all he wanted. Treat me like a man, like a human, like an individual. That's what it came down to. He wasn't sitting up there saying, "I am a man. Oh, by the way, give me $2 million."
And correct me if I'm wrong. The "I have a dream" speech does not make any references to reparations.
No, not a single one. I've heard it all. So this idea that by giving a individual or a family $2 million, it's just going to settle over 400 years worth of slavery, it just doesn't make any sense. Now, here's the thing. What I just got done saying is the exact thing that will keep continuing this stuff past the $2 million proposal. You see what I'm saying?
Well, and let's just say, that's right. We're talking about reparations here, folks. How about the discrimination in the lending process for black folks trying to acquire a home? Mm-hmm. Okay. How do you prevent that from happening
again
going forward?
Right. I mean, and to be quite honest with you, that stuff at work can even happen. So it's like, again, another situation. When does this stop? I heard a documentary once about this husband and wife, black husband and wife, very wealthy people. It probably considered to be in the top 3%, very wealthy people. They were trying to sell their house out there on the East Coast. And the realtor, which I think was white or something like that, basically told them, I'm sure some of you guys out there, if you're in realty, and they're definitely, verify me on this. And also, but a lot of times, you have where people come to the house and they kind of see all the different things and stuff like that. Of course,
they want to see the improvement stuff that you've made, right?
Exactly. So they want to see all those different things. Obviously the current residents are not staying there; they're going for a walk, whatever's the case. Anyway, long story short, guys, the couple mentioned in the documentary that the realtor basically told them, was asking them to put down all their family pictures that showed them. And of course, they were kind of perplexed. It's like, why did you want to do it? Because they thought, according to the realtor, mm-hmm. they thought that by showing that there was a black couple that lived there, although it was a high-end type of property, the realtor thought that by showing that a black family lives there, it would be harder to sell. Yeah, you guys heard that right.
Okay, so how does reparations stop that from happening?
Exactly.
It doesn't.
That's my entire point. And by the way, that documentary was probably about 5-6 years ago. So how does this stop? Where does this go? Where does this go? So when you're looking at that, oh, you know what? They gave the $2 million or whatever the case may be, however it is that it goes. And also, what's that old phrase? You give a mouse a cookie, you're going to want a glass of milk?
Yeah.
When does it end?
Well, it doesn't.
Right.
But and this isn't just unique to California, mm-hmm. right? It is. We've seen stories of, other states looking at potential reparations in some capacity, and again, just looking at this, I don't get it, because we're apologizing for things that we were not a part of. And I think that's a distinction that is often lost on today's society
Mm-hmm.
is you're punishing us for decisions made 400 years ago, or 500 years ago,
mm-hmm.
right? How does that make sense? Because it doesn't.
It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. It is an unfortunate. It's an unfortunate situation. A horrible situation that happened in U.S. history. But to blame white people in America for the situation that's gone on, I just don't think that's right. Let's go one step further. You think Jewish people could say that in Germany?
No, not at all.
But you get the point, though.
Yeah, but they're not asking for reparations.
And that's my second point. That's my second point. You would think they'd have more than enough, but no. So what have they done or what? They've sat there and said, okay, in German history, where this is a horrible thing that happened in German history. But instead of us wiping it clean like that, we're going to keep the facilities up, so that people can look at this from historical, and so that this will never happen again.
So why does America have to apologize for America's history?
I think a lot of it has to do with, just kind of the way society is right now. It's like, everybody is, and you've mentioned this, I think it was like on episode 2, and also definitely guys go back and check that. But, you mentioned that as well. It's like, just about how people are just really, really overly sensitive. Now, what I just said is probably going to get me a whole lot of smoke. Because you said, well, Rich, you're a black person, or you're trying to say that, people in slavery, they're being oversensitive because they want reparations. No, that's not what I'm saying. But we live in a society now where just the littlest things set people off.
And the last time I checked, I haven't seen any news stories or heard anything where a black man was tied to a tree, whipped and flogged recently.
Mm-hmm. Right. I think last time, it was early 80s.
I mean, I don't know. This whole reparations thing, again, it feels like an insult, number one. Two, I think on some level, it's almost a free handout.
Yeah.
And Rich, you can better, as a black person, do you see that as a handout, or is that what?
I mean, as a handout,
is a handout with a half-hearted apology?
Yeah, I mean, because it goes back to what you were saying before. It's like trying to put a number on how deep the sincerity is makes it really, really hard to say, yeah, people are really, really saying that they're sorry and everything for what slavery happened, and we're just going to put a number on it or a blank check or whatever the case may be, and then that's supposed to be okay.
So, or is this whole reparations nonsense? All right, I'm just going to call it what it is. It's a bunch of bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
Is this taking all of racism and discrimination? It's taking the 400 years to where that, are having slaves in America, right? Mm-hmm. Bundling that in with today's society, tying that all up in a neat little bow. Here is some money. We're sorry. We'll do a better job next time. Life goes on.
Right.
That's almost what it seems like. We're trying to put a pretty bow on a situation that is not worth it. There's nothing.
It's not going to solve anything.
But what do we have to apologize for?
Right.
Are there people out there that discriminate? Yes.
Absolutely.
Are there racist people out there? Yes.
Right.
Right. There's plenty of different groups out there. Mm-hmm. Right. You look on the left, you look on the right. The most famous group that comes to mind, the Ku Klux Klan. Right.
Right.
But how does giving money to the black community wash away that, we're not going to be racist anymore?
Not going to happen.
That's my point. And so I'm trying to understand in what version of this story do reparations make what has happened in our history, right? We should ignore our history. In fact, we should
learn from it.
We should, I was going to say we should embrace our history from let's learn from it and be better. People need to face the reality that it's not, that racism and discrimination in any form is never going to go away. A utopian society just doesn't exist.
Right. I don't care how many policies or bills or whatever you might come up with. This ideology that we have that's been really coming up where about there's going to be this unicorn utopia where everybody's going to get along. It's going to be sunshines, rainbows, and macaroni and cheese. And everything's going to be perfectly fine. Where it's like, it's just things that are just not going, it's just things that are not going to stop. As long as you have people out there who might have racist mentalities, it's like, it's going to perpetuate to the next generation in some way, shape, or form. It is. So the way I look at it as a black person, it's like, okay, you know what? It's like, I realize that, but that doesn't mean a word that I cannot be something in my life. It doesn't mean that I can't pursue something or whatever it is, the word. So, I mean, that's what it is. It says, as we know, so in our, as it says in our history, you have the right, of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. Okay. So I'm not going to let people out there who might not like me for my color or whatever the case may be, or try to go even one step further. Like my mom has always said, my mom was always a person, she said, Ricky, it's like, you are not going to sit there and live a life where you're going to be blaming white people for everything. She said, I grew up in a high school like that where people did it all the time. Oh, white people are keeping this down, and white people are keeping us down, and this, that, and the other. Where it's like
the man's keeping us down.
Exactly, the man's keeping us down. Where so always constantly use that way, and literally, I mean,
I'm repressed by the man.
Exactly. And here's the thing: it's like my mom felt so strong about that, and I'm just sharing a personal story with you guys on Woke Nation. My mom felt so strong about that, she literally left her high school, her freshman year, to travel on a transit train downtown in the city she's from, just because she didn't want to deal with that. She didn't want to deal with the whole thing of constantly using excuses of, white people are keeping us down and stuff like that. She literally made a decision as a teenager saying, this is bullshit. I'm not raising my kids to thinking this mentality. You're going to make something of yourself. I think she did a pretty damn good job.
I don't disagree. It almost feels like it's an apology for being black.
Yeah.
That's what it looks like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sorry you're black. And
sorry for the past 400 years. We weren't a part of it. And oh, yeah, by the way, sorry you're black. Oh, by the way, here's your check.
Right. So it's like, okay, is that the end of it? Okay.
No.
Yeah, exactly. That's the point. It's like, it's not going to be the end of it. And so I agree with you. I think this whole thing about reparations, and then we haven't been just here in California. So, all you guys out there, it's like, whether you like us or not, or so you're for the bill, that's perfectly fine. And also, like I said, we have nothing. We're not trying to strike completely down on the state of California, because we've been hearing this stuff coming nationwide, know. So, but it just doesn't make any sense. I think it's absolute bullshit. It's like, we shouldn't be having white people now in situations dealing with that. But if you are a person out there who's listening right now, so you do disagree with us, definitely, again, guys.
We want to hear from you.
Yeah, we want to hear from you. Shoot, heck, we might even have you on the show.
Yeah.
So that's not a problem. I mean, guys, definitely hear, like I said, we always want to hear from you guys. Like I said, feedback at unwoketheshow.com, feedback at unwoketheshow.com. If you agree or disagree with what we're saying about reparations, though, we definitely want to be able to hear from you guys. But hey, if you're a person out there, you think we're full of shit, definitely
we want to hear for it. Again, as Rich said, you can reach
us to smoke.
Exactly. You can reach us at feedback at unwoketheshow.com. Again, that is feedback at unwoketheshow.com. Thanks again, Unwoke Nation. Rich, great topic, great discussion. I loved it.
Awesome,
and we will talk to you guys next time.
Yes, guys. Remember, follow, comment, so definitely share our podcast. And also, we want this to go completely nationwide in all 50 states. And also, definitely keep us in mind. And we will see you guys on episode 9 for the next show. So enjoy your nights and see you next time.